What's up everyone, this is Horizon, and I'm going to be breaking down every major area of Dark Souls 2 from the eyes of a brand new player. This means, as seen through my eyes, I'll be letting you know how bad this game really is, or isn't, one zone at a time. I'll be breaking down the areas based on how difficult it was for me to navigate, how visually appealing it was, any cool quirks I happen to find along the way, and summaries of every boss I run into in the area. I'll finish each video with a grade I feel it deserves based on my experience. At the end of this series, I'll use the total average score I get from every level to determine the age-old question once and for all: is Dark Souls 2 a bad game? And hey, if you enjoy the video, feel free to toss it a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my Twitch stream where I stream all of the Souls games pretty often. Okay, thanks! Quick side note here, I do want to point out that there are going to be some zones and key items in this area that I miss. My experience through these zones were totally blind. Okay, now that I've covered that, let's jump into it. You enter Forest of the Fallen Giants from a tunnel directly from Majula, and it's the first real area you encounter that doesn't have some surreal twist to it like Things Betwixt. It's a pretty standard forest area with a river, giant ogres, hollows, and plenty of massive trees that either seem to be in the process of dying or are already dead. The path leads you directly to an arena with a bunch of hollows that suddenly come to life, and the encounter is, at least so far, the most difficult encounter I've run into, but it's nothing overwhelming. The dude at the top throwing firebombs the entire time was a pretty annoying addition that felt a little unnecessary, but don't worry, you'll see that that's a trend in this area. After the first fog gate, you wind up in a pretty run-down building that's filled with some fairly harmless hollows and, you guessed it, another annoying firebomb dude. Luckily, the first bonfire was pretty close by. The ladder beside the bonfire is what leads you to the next area, and for me, it was a pretty abrupt change of tone. The fire and stone architecture made me feel like I was suddenly in the middle of a castle. After taking out a few of the nearby hollows that were playing dead, I found my next fog gate and found myself right back in the forest. Let me stop right here and say that this dude and this path were by far my least favorite part of this area. This Turtle Knight guy was so annoying to deal with, and FromSoft decided that this was also the right place to introduce exploding barrels. Turtle Knight here loves to use cleave attacks, and they hit the exploding barrels without fail almost every time unless you deliberately try to lure him away. After exploring a little further, I found my first trap of Dark Souls 2. A broken wall with glowing white souls that lure you in, only to have you jump by like 4 hollows. I only gave this area one try before deciding whatever's in there just wasn't valuable enough for me to try it again. The next big chunk of my exploration in this area kind of blurred together because it was honestly just fighting groups of the same hollows over and over again, with the occasional exploding barrel brought back for funsies. The next shift of scenery came with me walking through another wall opening to what looked like part of the castle again from earlier, but now we're seaside. We get to deal with another turtle boy here and another ambush which I somehow managed to take down on my first try. The door here was locked, which means that I had to backtrack and figure out what I missed. Eventually, I discovered that there was a nearby elevator that took me down to what would be my first boss encounter of Dark Souls 2, the Last Giant. Up to this point, I've only played Dark Souls 1, 3, and Sekiro as of the recording of this, but out of all of these games, this might be the most underwhelming first boss I've run into. The mechanics were all incredibly predictable, and it didn't even have the surprise entrance that gave Asylum Demon even some kind of shock value. After taking him out and receiving the key, I used it to unlock the door I mentioned earlier, which took me to the next boss. After what felt like 30 seconds, I was already at my second boss encounter, the Pursuer. This guy had a broader moveset than the Last Giant, but most of the attacks were pretty predictable and easily avoided after seeing them a few times. I did enjoy this fight more than the Last Giant, but it still felt pretty one-dimensional. After taking him down, I came across a random bird's nest, which immediately threw me into the next area, Lost Bastille. This is the point where I'm going to consider my first run of Forest of the Fallen Giants complete, because this is the path the area felt like it naturally directed me through. Overall, I felt like Forest of the Fallen Giants was an okay first area for Dark Souls 2. It didn't feel as grand as being outside a giant castle like in the high walls of Lothric in Dark Souls 3, but I did feel like it had more variety than Undead Burg from Dark Souls 1. I give Forest of Fallen Giants a 3.5 out of 5 because I feel it does its job as a beginner area, but it feels disjointed, and I found myself circling back a few times after running into seemingly random dead ends. I might have enjoyed the tone of Forest a little more if it didn't directly follow my impression of Majula and how gorgeous it was being beside that giant sea. Either way, it was an okay zone that introduces you to the type of pacing you'll need to have to take on future areas. Up next will be Lost Bastille, and if you like exploding barrels as much as I do, which is none, you're in for a treat. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.